Renew the sun of our hearts, humbly clean up our lives. We walk in the power of your hand. Restore the truth, the love, the path to your grand master plan. To your grand master plan. So I proclaim Yahuwah, I proclaim Yahusha, yes, I proclaim Yahuwah, I proclaim Yahusha, from my heart to my mouth, by my words to my fruits, by your life, El Shaddai. You are reforming my life, from my heart to my mouth, by my words to my fruits, by your light, El Shaddai. You are reforming my life. You are reforming my life. So I proclaim Yahuwah, and I proclaim Yahusha. From my heart to my mouth, by my words to my fruits, by your light, El Shaddai. You are reforming my life, from my heart to my mouth, by my words to my fruits, by your light, El Shaddai. You are reforming my life. You are reforming my life.
Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Glad y'all made it. Glad everybody's here. The day of delight, Yom Shabbat of Yahuwah is here. Yay, we get to rest and research and read and study about Yahuwah. Doesn't get any better than that. Okay, so we got a good study this evening, I do believe. This just, Wood just put this on me moments ago, actually. And I'm going to run with it. And we'll be talking about the renewed covenant, the everlasting covenant, the divorce, the courting, the reconciliation, the remarriage, the taking of our vows, the renewal of our marriage, the renewed covenant, which is the everlasting covenant. There's a lot to go over here on this, so we'll get started here pretty quickly. But before we do, please allow me to say hello to a few people, and then we'll get started on this heavy, heavy study that I'm sure everyone will advance in the knowledge of Yahuwah this evening after hearing this. Okay, so here we go. Sandra Brunston, number 1. Every week, Sandra, you come in, you're number 1 person here. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, sister. Peggy Russell, glad you're here, sister. Ronald Sternberg, glad you're here, brother. Phil Dickey, glad you're here, brother. Raul Koto, glad you're here, brother. Lou White, glad you're here, brother. Phyllis White, glad you're here, sister. Kate Connell, glad you're here, sister. Kinsley, glad you're here, sister. Let it ring, glad you're here, sister. Yami, glad you're here, sister. All right. We got some trickling in here. Tiago Gamke, glad you're here, bro. Got some trickling in here, but we got to get started on this one. So I suppose we need to go to Genesis 17 to get started, and we can work up to it. Okay, so here we go. So Genesis 17:7 lets us know that there is Yahuwah is a covenant maker, and he has established a covenant. Okay, and this is the beginnings of it. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. I think you all probably understand this, but we'll get heavy into it here momentarily. So 17:7 says, "And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and your seed after you." Okay, so Yahuwah has a covenant in mind, and it's an everlasting covenant. And so we can definitely bank on the fact that if Yahuwah says it's an everlasting covenant, that it is indeed an everlasting covenant and cannot be broken. Okay, so what are we talking about here? Well, speaking in general terms, this everlasting covenant would be a marriage. a marriage between a husband and a bride. In this case, between Yahuwah and his people, his chosen, his election, Yisrael. Okay, so we'll pick up on this in Exodus 19, and we'll go from there with it. But keep in mind here that this is a marriage covenant. The children of Israel have to take a vow of love, a vow of sincerity to their husband, and agree to this, as in any other marriage, any other foreshadow or type of marriage would be a human marriage between a man and a woman, or an ash and a asha. Okay, and so this is the type of covenant that Yahuwah wants. This is the type of covenant Yahuwah made, and this is the type of covenant you must enter if you're wanting everlasting life. So the everlasting covenant we'll look at first, and then of course we'll go into the renewed covenant after we get through the divorce and the reconciliation, and move on into the renewed covenant. Okay, so that's what we're doing this evening. Hi, Valerie. Glad you're here, sister. So here we go. We're going to begin now in Exodus 19, or we're going to pick up in Exodus 19, I should say. So here we go. In the 3rd month after the children of Israel had come out of the land of Mitzrayim, on this Yom they came to the wilderness of Sinai. For they set out from Rephidim and had come to the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness. So Yisrael camped there before the mountain. And Moshe went up to Elohim, and Yahuwah called to him from the mountain, saying, "This is what you are to say to the house of Jacob, and declare to the children of Yisrael. You have seen what I did to the Mitzrites, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. And now, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all the peoples, for all the earths is mine. And you shall be to me a reign of priests and a set-apart nation. Those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Yisrael." And Moshe came and called for the elders of the people, and set before them all these words which Yahuwah commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, "All that Yahuwah has spoken we shall do." So Moshe brought back the words of the people to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, "See, I am coming to you in the thick cloud, so that the people hear when I speak with you and believe you forever." And Moshe reported the words of the people to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Go to the people and set them apart today and tomorrow." Okay, so this was basically, up to this point, was the proposal from Yahuwah, from the husband to the bride, his body, Israel. And now the bride accepted under no conditions. They just totally said yes to Yahuwah. And now the marriage ceremony begins. Okay, and so this is what we're going to read about here a little bit, and pick that back up, the marriage ceremony back up in chapter 24. But let's continue on here. Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Go to the people and set them apart today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their garments and shall be prepared by the third Yom. For on the third Yom, Yahuwah shall come down upon Mount Sinai before the eyes of all the people. So they're to clean up and be set apart for 3 days. It's kind of like a virgin bride, right? She gets all cleaned up and puts on her clean clothes, gets prepared for the wedding ceremony, right? So they're prepping for a wedding. This is exactly what the children of Israel did when there was a couple that was going to get married. They would go through these rituals and ceremonies, and it's exactly what they did when Yahuwah married them as well. They're going right through the same type ritual ceremonies as they would if it was a man and woman getting married. You got to see that. This is a wedding ceremony. It's coming, okay? And you shall make a border for the people all around, saying, take heed to yourselves that you do not go up to the mountain or touch the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall certainly be put to death. Not a hand is to touch it, but he shall certainly be stoned or shot with an arrow, whether man or beast. He shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, let them come near the mountain. And Moses came down from the mountain to the people and set the people apart. And they washed their garments, and he said to the people, be prepared by the third Yom. Be prepared, you're going to get married to Yahuwah. Do not come near an Asha. Do not come near an Asha. They're supposed to set themselves apart. And it came to be on the third Yom in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain. And the sound of the ram's horn was very loud, announcing the coming of the groom. And all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with Elohim. And they stood on the foot of the mountain, and Mount Sinai was in smoke. All of it, because Yahuwah descended upon it in fire. Ooh. And its smoke went up like the smoke of a furnace, and all the mountain trembled exceedingly. So there we go. Mount Sinai is totally on fire. It's totally filled with smoke, engulfed in smoke. The people are trembling, and the mountain itself is trembling because the groom has arrived. And when the blast of the ram's horn sounded long and became louder and louder, Moses spoke, and Elohim answered him by voice. And Yahuwah came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain. And Yahuwah called Moses to the top of the mountain. And Moses went up, and Yahuwah said to Moses, go down and warn the people lest they break through to Yahuwah to see, and many of them fall. And let the priests who come near Yahuwah set themselves apart too, lest Yahuwah break out against them. And Moses said to Yahuwah, the people are not able to come up to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, make a border around the mountain and set it apart. And Yahuwah said to him, come, go down, and then come up, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priest and the people break through to come up to Yahuwah, lest he break out against them. And Moses went down to the people and spoke to them. And Elohim spoke all these words, saying, and here comes the marriage vow that they must recite, they must agree to, and they must maintain it. They have to do it. I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image, or any likeness of that which is in the Shemayim above, or which is in the Yeretz beneath, or which is in the Mayim under the Yeretz. You do not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am a jealous all, visiting the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing kindness to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands. You do not cast the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to ruin, for Yahuwah does not leave the one unpunished who cast his name to ruin. Remember the Yom Shabbat, to set it apart. 6 Yamim you labor and shall do all your work, but the 7th Yom is a Shabbat of Yahuwah your Elohim. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 Yamim Yahuwah made the Shemaim and the Eretz, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day, the 7th Yom. Therefore Yahuwah blessed the Yom Shabbat and set it apart. Respect your father and your mother, so that your Yamim are prolonged upon the soil which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. You do not murder, you do not break wedlock, you do not steal, you do not bear false witness against your neighbor, you do not covet your neighbor's house, you do not covet your neighbor's asha, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. And all the people saw the thunders and the lightning flashes, the sound of the ram's horn and the mountain smoking. And the people saw it, and they trembled and stood at a distance, and said to Moshe, you speak with us, and we hear, but let not Elohim speak with us, lest we die. And Moshe said to the people, do not fear, for Elohim has come to prove you, and in order that his fear be before you, so that you do not sin. In other words, don't commit adultery on him. So the people stood at a distance, but Moshe drew near the thick darkness where Elohim was. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, say this to the children of Israel, you yourselves have seen that I have spoken to you from the Shemaim. You do not make besides me mighty ones of silver, and you do not make mighty ones of gold for yourselves. Make an altar of Eretz for me, and you shall slaughter on it your burnt offerings, and your peace offerings, your sheep and your cattle. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I shall come to you and bless you. And if you make me an altar of stone, do not build it of cut stone. For if you use your chisel on it, you have profaned it. Nor do you go up by steps to my altar, lest your nakedness be exposed on it. Okay. Then he goes on and he continues to give them statutes or laws and things that they must obey. He goes on, keeps going on and on through there. And then comes up to 24. We pick back up the more details about the wedding, rituals or feast or ceremony, if you will. Okay. So it says in Exodus 24 now, is where I went to. And to Moshe he said, come up to Yahuwah, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Yisrael. And you shall bow yourselves from a distance. But Moshe shall draw near to Yahuwah by himself, and let them not draw near, nor let the people go up with him. And Moshe came and related to the people all the words of Yahuwah and all the right rulings. So these were all right rulings leading up to this. You can read them yourself later on. You get a chance if you wish. And all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which Yahuwah has spoken we shall do. So now they know exactly what his conditions were for him to marry his bride, and they basically said, "We do." And Moshe wrote down all the words of Yahuwah and rose up early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and 12 standing columns for the 12 tribes of Yisrael. And he sent young men of the children of Yisrael, and they offered burnt offerings and slaughtered peace slaughterings of bulls to Yahuwah. And Moshe took half the blood and put it in basins, and half the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the hearing of the people. And they said, "All that Yahuwah has spoken, we shall do and obey." So basically, they're saying that they'll marry him and they'll obey their husband. Okay. And Moshe took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, "See the blood of the covenant, which Yahuwah has made with you concerning all these words." And Moshe went up also Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Yisrael. And they saw the Elohim of Yisrael. They saw him. They laid eyes on him. And under his feet, like a paved work of sapphire stone, and like the Shemayim for brightness. And he did not stretch out his hand against the chiefs of the children of Yisrael. And they saw Elohim. They saw him. And they ate and drank. Why? It's the wedding feast. That's why. They're at the reception now. They went through the ceremony. Now they're at the reception, and they're eating and drinking in the presence of Yahuwah. And they laid eyes on him. So they're eating and looking at Yahuwah while they're eating and drinking. Probably not even blinking. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Come up to me on the mountain and be there while I give you tablets of stone and the Torah and the command which I have written to teach them." And Yahusha arose with his assistant Yahusha and Moshe. That would be Joshua, but Yahusha. And Moshe went up to the mountain of Elohim. And he said to the elders, "Wait here for us until we come back down to you. And see, Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has issues, let him go to them." And Moshe went up into the mountain, and a cloud covered the mountain. And the esteem of Yahuwah dwelt on Mount Sinai. Okay, so they saw Yahuwah as they ate at the reception dinner, okay, the wedding supper. All right, and so since they saw Yahuwah, which cannot be seen, he is a Ruach, and he cannot be seen. He's never been seen. Tells us that he was in a body form. He had to be in a body without giving up his omnipotence. He dwelt in a body, and this is way before the incarnation. So this would be the firstborn of all creation, or the Word. He saw that they were seeing him in his body, his esteemed body. And the cloud covered it for 6 yamim. And it says, "And the esteem of Yahuwah dwelt on Mount Sinai," which means he was on Mount Sinai in his body. The same body that sits on the throne, his esteemed body, okay? And the cloud covered it for 6 yamim. And on the 7th yam, he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the appearance of the esteem of Yahuwah was like a consuming fire on the top of the mountain before the eyes of the children of Yesharal. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain. And it came to be that Moses was on the mountain 40 Yamim and 40 Leas. All right. So there you go. There we see Yahuwah's intent, and his intentions was to marry his bride and have a bride for himself. And then we see the proposal. We see the ceremony, the preparation 3 days of the washing and the cleansing of the bride, preparing for her husband for the marriage ceremony. And we witnessed the marriage ceremony, and then we witnessed the wedding supper. The vows were given and accepted by both parties, and then the wedding supper. So this would be then the everlasting covenant. It's a marriage covenant. All right. Okay. So let's move on now. So now we know that there is a covenant now. We also know that probably from this point on, it was a war against the covenant, and especially the bride of Yahuwah, the devil. Satan hates the covenant. He hates Yahuwah's bride. He hates everything about the marriage ceremony that we just read. So what do you think Satan's up to? Well, obviously he's up to trying to cause the bride to default on her marriage vows and to commit adultery against Yahuwah by worshiping other mighty ones and spending time with other mighty ones. And Yahuwah sees this as idolatry or whoring. The idolatry is whoring to Yahuwah, I meant to say. And so idolatry is adultery or whoring as far as Yahuwah is concerned. Okay, so we know now that the adversary is not liking this covenant between Yahuwah and his chosen. All right, so there is a war against the covenant. Always has been, and it still is, and we must be aware of that. So it's like a sneaky, silver-tongued, good-looking, young, tall, dark suitor trying to influence somebody's wife to have an affair with them. Okay, behind the husband's back. So we can look at it that way because, and we'll get into this, the marriage between a man and woman is just a type or a foreshadowing of what we just read. The marriage between Yahuwah and his chosen, his election, his bride, Yesharal. Okay, so everything applies. All right, so now let's creep over here into Deuteronomy 5. We'll just y'all want to continue to read on your own, go ahead. So this is, like I said, with the everlasting covenant. Marriage is supposed to be everlasting. It's not temporal. When you marry someone, it's supposed to be permanent. Death until you die, right? In Yahuwah's case, it's everlasting, eternal. Because as far as Yahuwah is concerned, when you fall asleep, you're not dead. You're not breaking the covenant by your death because you're merely asleep until he calls you out of the grave and resurrects you, gives you a white robe to put on or an immortal body. Okay. All right. So let's pick this up in Deuteronomy 5, 1 through 22. Now keep in mind, this is the everlasting covenant, and And so once we get through a divorce situation here, it's not going to be a new covenant. Okay, it can't be a new covenant. If it's everlasting, it has to be the same covenant. Okay, so it can only be renewed. It can't be a new covenant because it's an everlasting covenant. You see what I'm saying? So keep that in mind as we continue through here. There's not going to be anything new here. There's just going to be reconciliation and remarriage, okay, to the same bride. Now keep in mind, I know a lot of people say, well, how can that be? Because scripture says if you divorce your wife and she goes and marries another man and then he divorces her or he dies, then she can't come back to the original husband and get remarried. That's against Torah. And that's true. But the thing that we got to understand here is, number one, he's not marrying the same exact people, personas per se. Okay, they've all died, right, in the wilderness and so forth and so on through the ages. So these are new people. Everybody's a different person, a different component that makes up the body of Yahusha, right? So in reality, he's really not remarrying a bride that he had divorced and went out whoring and then took her back because they're dead. Okay, so we got to understand that. And here's the other big one: is we got to understand this, that when we recounsel with Yahuwah, he recounsels with us, and he courts us, and then we get remarried with him. Okay, he doesn't marry anybody. Yahuwah ain't going to marry anybody that's unclean. No. He cleans you up first. He gives you back your virgin status so that you are a new creature. You're white as snow. You have no blemish, no spots, no wrinkles. You are now a virgin bride, prepared for the marriage to your husband. He doesn't marry anybody that's unclean. So don't make that mistake. So a lot of people teach that, and they're totally wrong on that. He's not taking back a dirty bride. He's cleaning his bride up first. She becomes a new creature in Mashiach, totally clean, white as snow. Matter of fact, the blood of Yahusha returns her back and gives her back virgin status. She's so clean and so bright and radiant, full of light, beauty, and cleansing and clean. That's who he marries. That's who he remarries, a clean virgin bride. Make no mistake, Yahuwah does not marry anyone who is unclean or dirty. Okay, so let's continue on now back to Deuteronomy 5, 1 through 22, if you will. And Moshe called all Yisrael and said to them, Hear, O Yisrael, the laws and right rulings which I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and guard to do them. Yahuwah, our Elohim, made a covenant with us in Horeb, which is Mount Sinai, another name for Mount Sinai. Okay, so he's reminiscing here. Moshe is reminiscing. He made a covenant with us in Horeb. And you shall learn them and guard to do them. This means to stay trustworthy and loyal to your husband. You have to know your vows and what you agree to doing. And you remain true, blue, loyal, trustworthy to your husband. And you turn your back on all others, forsake all others, and cling to your husband. That means you cannot worship, bow down, celebrate, honor, esteem any other mighty one. other than Yahuwah, because he is your mighty one. You married him, and you took a vow that he would be your one and only love, your one and only Yahuwah or Elohim. And you took that vow. You don't want to break that vow, that marriage covenant. Yahuwah did not make this covenant with our fathers, listen to that, but with us, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. So he's saying everybody before Yahuwah took those vows was not part of the marriage covenant. He took it with them, all those that were there and all those who were alive. It's very interesting, isn't it? Yahuwah spoke with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. Did you know that the burning bush, when Moses saw the fire on the mountain and he got closer to it to see what it was, he saw a burning bush? I think we all know that, but what we don't know, because they don't ever teach it, is that there was a figure of a man inside the burning bush. Look at that and read it yourself. Very interesting, isn't it? I stood between Yahuwah and you at that time to declare to you the word of Yahuwah. For you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up the mountain, saying, I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim and out of the house of bondage. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of which is in the Shemayim above, or which is in the arets beneath, or which is in the mayim under the arets. You do not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, Yahuwah, your Elohim, am a jealous all, visiting the crookedness of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing kindness to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands. You do not bring the name of Yahuwah your Elohim to ruin, for Yahuwah does not leave him unpunished who brings his name to ruin. Guard Yom Shabbat, to set it apart, as Yahuwah your Elohim commanded you. 6 Yamim you labor and shall do all your work, but the 7th Yom is a Shabbat of Yahuwah your Elohim. You do not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your ox, nor your donkey, nor any of your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates, so that your male servant and your female servant rest as you do. And you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your Elohim brought you out from there by a strong hand and by an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahuwah your Elohim commanded you to observe Yom Shabbat. Notice here how he's intently holding the head of the household responsible for everybody else keeping Shabbat, including himself. So if you find yourself in a position of authority as a boss, as the head of a family, the owner of a spread, cattle or horses, so forth and so on, you are being held responsible for everyone under your watch to keep Yom Shabbat, including yourself. It's pretty clear. Look at all the your. He's talking specifically to the head of the household or the authority figure in charge. So better keep that in mind. So don't think if you could make somebody work on Yom Shabbat and you're the business owner and you go in there and work and you make them work, his sin is on you. You're the one that must make sure your servant obeys Yom Shabbat. So don't think you're getting away with it, saying, he's the one who'll get in trouble, not me, so I'll make him work. Doesn't work that way. It's not working like that, folks. Respect your father and your mother, as Yahuwah your Elohim has commanded you, so that your yamam are prolonged, and so that it is well with you on the soil which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. You do not murder, you do not break wedlock, you do not steal, you do not bear false witness against your neighbor. You do not covet your neighbor's asha, nor do you desire your neighbor's house, his field, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, his ox, nor his donkey, or whatever belongs to your neighbor. These words Yahuwah spoke to all your assembly in the mountain from the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness, with a loud voice, and he added no more. That's very powerful stuff right there. Yahuwah added no more. So should we? I'd say I would advise against it. Let's just say that. Be very careful of all the, let's see, number 17, number 17A, number 17B, number 17C, 18, 18A, 19, whatever. Get what I'm saying? So he added no more. There's only 10 to borrow. There's no subtitles to it. There's no A, B, and C. There's no, respect your father and your mother, and then A, B, and C under it. And it's not happening. There's no keep Yom Shabbat and A, B, C, D, and E under it. He said what he said, and he added no more. And I advise against anyone adding or subtracting from these marriage vows. Be very careful. Okay, so we can see here now that the everlasting covenant is established. He's resonating on it. He's talking about it and emphasizing it, and on. Okay, so it's established. It's real. It's something that happened, and they're living by it because they took the vows. Once you marry, you enter that marriage vow, even with an earthly marriage, you're in it, man. You can't get out of it. You can't decide, well, yeah, I said those words, but I'm gonna go ahead and commit adultery. That good-looking chick down the road there, she's been looking at me. I think I'm gonna stop and get her, get a hold of her. And Yahuwah knows my heart, so he knows I'm a good person. But the flesh is weak, and the ruach is willing, but the flesh is weak. So I'm good to go. It doesn't work that way. Since human marriage is a type or foreshadow of the marriage between Yahuwah and Yisrael, everything you do in your human marriage is a reflection it's a mirror of that marriage, the same thing you're doing to Yahuwah. So you better understand that and not getting away with anything. Okay, so let's look at Deuteronomy 31. 24 through 27. It says, and it came to be when Moshe had completed writing the words of this Torah in a book. Okay, Torah is instructions. So we could say writing the words of his instructions in a book. Okay. Christianity teaches that Torah means law, the law, but it really does not. Okay. Until their completion, that Moshe commanded the Levites who bore the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, saying, take this book of the Torah, and you shall place it beside the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah, your Elohim, and it shall be there as a witness against you. It's a witness against you. If you break your vows, the Torah is a witness against you because it's got the vows recorded that you just broke, proving that law, those vows existed. So it's a witness against you. It's not doing you any favors. It's not getting you out of anything. I don't care if you know the whole Torah verbatim. It's still a witness against you. For I myself know your rebellion and your stiff neck. See, while I am still alive with you today, you have been rebellious against Yahuwah. Then how much more after my death? So here we see now that the old, I don't even like to say old covenant. It's the old priesthood is involved in this book, but better yet would be the everlasting covenant. I don't see it being old or new. It can only be the everlasting covenant and the renewed everlasting covenant, meaning it's the same, it's continued. It's not new or it's not old, it's just continued. Okay, which is going to be continued by your remarriage, that he remarries his people. All right. So we can say safely, I think we can say old priesthood laws, which is animal ceremonies, the animal blood ceremonies and things like that. But as far as the covenant, I don't think we should say old covenant. We should just say everlasting covenant. And then perhaps it would be okay to say renewed covenant because there was a divorce. All right. So now let's take a look here. Let's go to Jeremiah 3, starting in verse 6 to 16. Okay, so we see there's a everlasting covenant. It's established. They're reminiscent on it. It's something they are doing. They're involved in. They're in a marriage forever. All right, so here we go. Jeremiah 3, 6 through 16. All right. Bonita Phillips, glad you're here. Buffalo 417, glad you're here. Brandon Gardner, glad you're here. And Yahuwah said to me in the Yamam of Yashayahu, the sovereign, have you seen what backsliding Israel has done? She has gone up on every high mountain and under every green tree, and there committed whoring. And after she had done all these, I said, return to me. But she did not return. And her treacherous sister, Yehuda, saw it. And I saw that for all the causes for which backsliding Yesharal had broken wedlock, I had put her away and given her a certificate of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister, Yehuda, did not fear, but went and committed whoring too. Okay, so now we can see that the going up on this high mountain under every green tree was an act of idolatry. It was paganism. They were worshiping pagan gods, is what they were doing with these evergreens, these green trees, whatever they were. They might not have been evergreens, but they were some type of tree. And they were under there doing pagan things, and it was mounted. What it all amounted to was idolatry, which Yahuwah considers to be adultery. Okay, because it's other mighty ones, false mighty ones, and so to him, that's whoring. His wife's out behind his back, cheating on him. You say it in the way a human mind can understand it. His wife's out, Israel's out cheating on her husband. And he caught her, and he has given her a certificate of divorce, which means in writing. It would be in writing. A certificate would be in writing, okay, of divorce. Okay. Now, back here at this particular time, Yesharal, and then Yehuda would be speaking of the two kingdoms. Okay, so it would be the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom here. Okay, which should be one kingdom, but it's split into two kingdoms. Okay, all right. So bad news here, right? And so we can easily see it here that's what's happening, because it says in 5 and 8. Backsliding Israel had broken wedlock. So that proves that the everlasting covenant we just read about was a wedding ceremony, and those were wedding vows and a wedding supper. Everything we just said, this proves it. Wedlock. She broke her wedlock. When did she get married? Well, back in when we just read. It proves it. So it's a certificate of divorce, and it came to be Yehuda committed whoring too, which means she was committing idolatry as well. And it came to be through her frivolous whoring. Wow. Must have been a nympho. That she defiled the land and broken wedlock with stones and wood. There it is, stones and wood. So this would be statues. This could be images. This could be decorating a tree, bowing down to it. And we all know that that's Yashua and a bunch of other different names we can attach to that, which I don't really want to say. And yet for all this, her treacherous sister Yehuda has not turned to me with all her heart, but falsely. She lying, declares Yahuwah. Instead of turning, admitting she's wrong, admitting her sins, her iniquities or whatever, she is denying it, and she's being a hypocrite, probably lie and hypocrisy as well concerning Israel, no doubt. But falsely, she's telling lies of some sort. And Yahuwah said to me, backsliding Israel has shown herself more righteous than treacherous Yehuda, because Yehuda is lying about it, trying to get her. In other words, pretending like she's a good bride, doing everything she's supposed to do out in public, in the front of people, but behind everybody's back, she committing a whoring and lying about it to her husband. It makes you wonder, why does she think she could lie to Yahuwah? But obviously that's what she was doing. I shall not look on you in displeasure, for I am kind, declares Yahuwah. Yahuwah's kindness is everlasting, folks. Everybody needs to praise him and worship him, for his kindness is everlasting. Good thing. We all be in big trouble. And I do not bear a grudge forever. Wow. Only acknowledge your crookedness. See, he just wants her to admit it. Admit you're a whore. You're whoring on me behind my back. Admit it. But yet she falsely says no. Just admit it, that your crookedness. You're committing adultery on me. Admit it, but she won't. Acknowledge your crookedness, because you have transgressed against Yahuwah your Elohim, and have scattered your ways to strangers under every green tree. And you have not obeyed my voice, declares Yahuwah. And don't forget, they brought those green trees into their house. Okay, that's one of the big things that they did, that Israel did. And they got them scattered. And when they brought these trees into their house and to worship them inside their home, Yahuwah had enough of that, and he scattered them. And so you can almost detect the descendants of Yisrael that were scattered by those who are bringing trees into their home and decorating them, and they bow down to them when they place gifts underneath them, and they also bow down to them when they remove the gifts and distribute them out to their loved ones. It's a form of worship when they take that knee or their knees and to reach under that tree, and they decorate that tree all up with different ornaments and that mean things to the informed. The uninformed don't get it. They think they're doing something good, but they're hanging the balls or testicles or witch balls, semen, all kinds of stuff, wreaths and stuff that represent the vagina and other things that represent testicles. Even the tree itself is a palace, so forth and so on. So it's worshiping it's a fertility gods. They're worshiping fertility gods in this mess that they're doing, unaware of. But you can almost trace Israel back to the people that are doing that. Have they're descendants of Yisrael. They're still doing it even today. But the good news is they're waking up from no matter where they're scattered to. The children of Israel are now waking up, and they're throwing out all that pagan idolatry, and they're starting to praise and worship Yahuwah and call on the name of Yahuwah from wherever they're at. So the great awakening is taking place as we speak. Return, O backsliding children, declares Yahuwah, for I shall rule over you and shall take you, one from a city and two from a clan, and shall bring you to Zion. And I shall give you shepherds according to my heart, and they shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. And it shall be when you have increased and shall bear fruit in the land in those days, declares Yahuwah, they no longer say, the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah. Neither would it come to heart, nor would they remember it, nor would they visit it, nor would it be made again. All right, so I'm going to stop right there. I just wanted you to see here that this everlasting covenant now has been broken because of adultery, which is idolatry, worshiping other mighty ones, and nature, wood and stone, statues of wood and stone, nature, the sun, the moon, the stars, whatever. It's all adultery to Yahuwah. And it's reason for him to give his bride, his wife, a certificate of divorce. And so now the everlasting covenant has been, it's still there. It doesn't end, but they're removed from it because of this divorce. Does that mean that they're no longer his wife? No, it don't. Matter of fact, in the human marriage, if you divorce your wife, you put her away, she's still your wife. You're not allowed to go messing around on her. She ain't allowed to go messing around on you. If either one of you do, that's adultery. And that's a reflection of the marriage between Yahuwah and yourself. It's a type. It's a foreshadow. And so it counts. We'll see that. We'll get to that. We got to get into the Nazarene writings, and we'll pick up on that. Pick back up on that, okay? All right, so now so we know where we're at now. So let's find out now what's going to happen. What's Yahuwah going to do about this? So Jeremiah 31, y'all. Hi, Birdman Collins. Glad you're here. Me, glad you're here. All right, 31, Jeremiah. At that time, declares Yahuwah, I shall be the Elohim of all the clans of Yisrael, and they shall be my people. Thus said Yahuwah, a people escaped from the sword found favor in the wilderness, Yisrael, when it went to find rest. Yahuwah appeared to me from afar, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Do you understand the everlasting covenant? He has his love for people in the everlasting covenant is everlasting. So he's an everlasting covenant. He loves you with an everlasting love. Those of you who are in the covenant. Wow. That's powerful stuff. Well, what a statement that is. Oh, hi, Mike. Got you, man. Your other brother's right on there, too. Birdman Colin. You got two brothers on here tonight and a mother. That's good. All right, guys. I see you. All right, so here we go. I am going to build you again. Therefore, I shall draw you with kindness. So he's going to draw you back with kindness. This is the what you would call the courting phase. So now he's looking for his lost bride. He's going to court her again, start dating her again. He's going to go sparking her. Okay, we call it sparking. He's sparking her. All right. I'm going to build you with kindness. Okay. So he's going to draw her back to him with kindness. It's interesting, isn't it? I am going to build you again. So we can relate all this to a human relationship. I'm going to build you again, and you shall be rebuilt, O maiden of Israel. Get that? What's a maiden? Maiden's a virgin. And you shall be rebuilt, O maiden of Israel. He's going to return her back to her virgin status, because he is not going to marry or remarry anybody that's unclean. He's not going to marry anybody that's unclean. He wants a clean virgin bride. Again, you shall take up your tambourines and go forth in the dances of those who rejoice. Again, you shall plant vines on the mountains of Samaria. The planters shall plant and treat them as common. For there shall be a day, or yom, when the Nazarene cry on Mount Ephraim, arise and let us go to Zion, to Yahuwah our Elohim. So this is what this is saying is the scattered people of Israel that's been scattered throughout the world because of their adultery, their whoring, is going to wake up. There's going to be an awakening, and they're going to wake up, and they're going to realize that what they've done, and they're going to return to Yahuwah. Arise and let us go to Zion, to Yahuwah our Elohim. See that? The Great Awakening is already happening. It's going on around the world right now. And when I say around the world, I mean around the world. It's really catching on like wildfire. And thus said Yahuwah, sing with gladness for Jacob, or Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Cry out, give praise, and say, O Yahuwah, deliver your people, the remnant of Yisrael. See, I am bringing them from the land of the north, and shall gather them from the ends of the Eretz. Among them the blind and the lame, those with child and those in labor, together, a great assembly returning here. With weeping they shall come, and with their prayers I bring them. I shall make them walk by rivers of Mayim, or waters, in a straight way in which they do not stumble. For I shall be a father to Israel and Ephraim. He is my firstborn. All firstborn belongs to Yahuwah, of man and beast. When you enter into the everlasting covenant, you have entered into the assembly of the firstborn, which is recorded up in the heaven. Okay, so you have the firstborn is Yahuwah, so you become Yahuwah's. Hear the word of Yahuwah, O Gentiles, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel gathers him, and shall guard him as a shepherd his flock. So you see here now, the Israelites that were scattered because of their idolatry and their adultery to Yahuwah, being whores, worshiping other mighty ones in nature and trees, and bringing them into the house and all. That's why they were scattered. We're seeing here now that the ones that are far off, oh, Gentiles, he's calling them Gentiles because they've been living out there among the nations and then breeding with the Gentiles for so long that these people think they're Gentiles. They don't remember who they are, neither do they know Yahuwah until he wakes them up. So he's calling them Gentiles here. It's really the lost sheep of Israel, if you're picking up what I'm laying down. And shall guard him as a shepherd his flock. For Yahuwah shall ransom Yaqub and redeem him from the hand of one stronger than he. And they shall come in and shall sing on the height of Zion and stream to the goodness of Yahuwah. For grain and for new wine and for oil and for the young of the flock in the herd. And their being shall be like a well-watered garden and never languish again. Then shall a maiden rejoice in a dance, and young men and old together. And I shall turn their mourning to joy, and shall comfort them, and shall make them rejoice from their sorrow, and shall fill the being of the priest with fatness. And my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, says Yahuwah. Thus said Yahuwah, a voice was heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children because they are no more. Thus said Yahuwah, hold back your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for there is a reward for your work, declares Yahuwah. And they shall return from the land of the enemy, and there is expectancy for your latter end, declares Yahuwah. And your children shall return to their own country. I have clearly heard Ephraim laminating. You have chastened me, and I was chastened like an untrained calf. Turn me back, and I shall turn back, for you are Yahuwah my Elohim. For after my turning back, I repented. And after I was instructed, I struck myself on the thigh. I was ashamed, even humiliated, for I bore the reproach of my youth. Is Ephraim? Ephraim is what Yahuwah calls the northern tribes that he scattered. The 10 tribes that he scattered. He calls them, that's his nickname for him, is Ephraim. Is Ephraim or Israel? He calls him Israel as well. Is Ephraim a precious son to me, a child of delights? For though I spoke against him, I still remembered him. That is why my affections were deeply moved for him. I have great compassion for him, declares Yahuwah. So even though he scattered them because of their adultery, he still loves them with an everlasting love. It's pretty clear. He has a big affection for them. Set up signposts. Make landmarks. I'm in Jeremiah 31, verse 21. Set up signposts. Make landmarks. Set your heart toward the highway, the way in which you went. Turn back, O maiden of Yesharal. Turn back to the cities of yours. Till when would you turn here and there, O backsliding daughter? For Yahuwah has created what is new on Eretz, and Asha encompasses a man. Thus said Yahuwah of Zaboth, the Elohim of Yisrael, let them once again say this word in the land of Yehuda and in its cities, when I turn back their captivity. Yahuwah bless you, O home of righteousness, mountain of set apartness, and in Yehuda and all its cities, farmers and those who journey with flocks shall dwell together. For I shall fill the weary being, and I shall replenish every grieved being. And this I awoke and looked around, and my sleep was sweet to me. See, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, that I shall sow the house of Israel and the house of Yehuda with the seed of man and the seed of beast. And it shall be that as I have watched over them to pluck up and to break down and to throw down and to destroy and to afflict, so I shall watch over them to build and to plant, declares Yahuwah. He's going to build and plant. So what's this talking about? Reconciliation. That's what it's talking about. Remember, we went through the certificate. He gave them a certificate of divorce. Now, this is the reconciliation. He's going to court them, dating them. He's going to attract them with his kindness. And he is going to recounsel with them, bring them back home and recounsel with them. Okay? In those Yamim they shall no longer say, the fathers ate sour grapes, and the children's teeth are blunted. But each one shall die for his own crookedness. Whoever eats sour grapes, his teeth shall be blunted. What this is meaning is the father will not be punished for the sins of his children, and the children will not be punished for the sins of their father. That's what this means. It's what they call a Hebrew idiom. See, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant. So here we go. Now all of a sudden, he's talking about after the reconciliation that he's going to renew the everlasting covenant. He's going, in other words, he's going to remarry his bride, is what this means. He's going to remarry his bride. Okay, so I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehuda. Not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. See there? So this is reaffirming that he married them. They broke their wedding vows, their covenant, and he divorced them. Now he's going to renew the covenant. He's going to recounsel with them, bring them back, renew the covenant, okay? And my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. You see that? For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel. It's going to be, it can't be a new covenant because it's the same covenant. It's still an everlasting covenant. He said everlasting, it's everlasting. Just because he give them a certificate of divorce doesn't mean that he abolished the everlasting covenant. It continued on, and they remained his wives. They were just whores, and he threw them out of his house. He didn't want them around him, but they were still his wife. They continued to whore, but he didn't. So I'm saying, so now he's going to renew the everlasting covenant. So in other words, he's going to, after he recounsels with them, he cleans them up, returns them to virgin status. He's planning on remarrying them again, Israel again, the seed of Abraham. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahuwah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Okay, so it's the same thing. But instead of him handing them the marriage vows that was carried inside the ark, that he'd given to Moses. Now he's going to take those, instead of writing them on 2 tablets of stones, he's going to write them on our hearts, inscribe them on our hearts and in our minds, our inward parts. Write it on their hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. So they're going to be his body, his bride, and he's going to be their husband again. Okay. So this is the everlasting covenant being renewed. So he's looking for a bride again, right? But he's not going to replace her with a new bride, but he's going to recounsel with her and remarry her. That's his plan. After he cleans her up, of course. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookedness and remember their sin no more. Thus said Yahuwah, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night, who steers up the sea and its waves roar. Yahuwah Sabaoth is his name. See that? So he's given the sun for light up by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night. So there's no darkness here, folks. There's just the greater light and the lesser light. There's no darkness here. You got to understand that. Yahuwah Sabaoth is his name, and if these laws vanish before me, declares Yahuwah, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus said Yahuwah, if the Shemayim above could be measured and the foundations of the Eretz searched out beneath, I would also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, declares Yahuwah. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that the city shall be built for Yahuwah from the tower of Canaanah to the corner gate. And the measuring line shall again extend straight ahead to the hill Garib. Then it shall turn toward Goah, and all the valley of the dead bodies and of the ashes, and all the fields as far as the Wadi Kidron, to the corner of the horse gate toward the east, is to be set apart to Yahuwah. It shall not be plucked up or thrown down any more forever. All right, very good. So here we go now. Now we're seeing that he is willing. He wants to remarry. He's willing to recounsel. He's willing to clean his bride up and give her back her virgin status, make her clean again, and remarry her with the same exact conditions or vows that she took that we read in the everlasting covenant. So he's going to renew. Allow her and him to renew those vows and become remarried. Going to marry the same Asha, the same bride, taking the same bride. See that? When you can get to the point where you stop calling Yahuwah Baal or Bel or Lord, and start calling him your husband, you've reached a spiritual plateau. You're right where you need to be. You have woke up. All right, so Ezekiel 36, 20 through 28 says, And when they came to the nations, wherever they went, they profaned my set-apart name, for it was said of them, These are the people of Yahuwah, and yet they have gone out of his land. But I had compassion on my set-apart name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the nations wherever they went. Therefore say to the house of Israel, thus said the Master Yahuwah, I do not do this for your sake, O house of Israel, but for my set apart name's sake, which you have profaned among the nations wherever you went. And I shall set apart my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, which you have profaned in their midst. And the nation shall know that I am Yahuwah, declares the Master Yahuwah, when I am set apart in you before their eyes. And I shall take you from among the nations, and I shall gather you out of all the lands, and bring you into your own land. And I shall sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean. From all your filthiness and from all your idols, I cleanse you. So how's he doing that? Through your water immersion, your confession, your repentance, your water immersion, being washed with the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah, the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach, and then being immersed by Yahushua with the Ruach HaKodesh. This makes you clean and white as snow, people. The power of the blood of the Lamb can remove all your filthiness from you and give you back your maiden status. How powerful is that? Extremely powerful. And here's him speaking of the renewed covenant now. And I shall give you, and see, he wants to clean you up first. He's not going to marry an unclean bride. You got to be cleaned up. He's going to clean you up with the water and blood first and immerse you with the Ruach HaKodesh, which cleans your being up, cleans you on the inside. All right. And I shall give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. And I shall take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and I shall give you a heart of flesh, and put my Ruach, or spirit, within you. And I shall cause you to walk in my laws, and guard my right rulings, and shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I shall be your Elohim. All right, so there we go. He's explaining the renewed covenant again. You're going to be put in your heart, inscribed on your heart and your inward parts and your mind after you're all cleaned up. And then you're going to be obedient to the 10 love commands, or what they call the 10 commandments, because those are your marriage vows. So he's going to put it in your heart so that you stay loyal, true blue, trustworthy wife to him. And since it's in you, and he's in you, guiding you and teaching you and helping you walk, it's impossible for you to sin. You're powerless to sin at that point. In other words, you're not going to go out whoring around on your husband. If you do, go out and bow down to Christmas trees by removing the presents and giving them to others, or placing them under there, decorating them, bowing down to them, worshiping these things, all these statues of stone and wood, so forth and so on, all this paganism stuff. That just means you don't have the Ruach HaKodesh in you. You haven't been cleaned up. You have not entered into the everlasting covenant if you're still doing those things. So if you think you have, and you're scratching your head and saying, how do you get the Ruach HaKodesh? Or why am I still doing, I know I shouldn't do them, but, I don't want to turn my back on my family. Why am I still putting up this Christmas tree and stuff? It's simple, because you don't have the Ruach HaKodesh in you, which means you're being disobedient to the Torah. It's that simple, man. So we see that there is a way, there is a narrow path that leads to the everlasting covenant, or for you to be able to remarry into the renewed covenant, Yahuwah, and become his bride again. but you definitely got to be cleaned up first with the water and the blood and the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh. And that starts with your confession of your crookedness and confessing that you were wrong and you broke your marriage vows and went whoring on your husband. So then you have to retake those marriage vows, and you must take a pledge by your water immersion and with your words as well, and accept the vows of the everlasting covenant and keep them. Be trustworthy, true blue, loyal to your husband. Stop whoring around on him. If you go back to whoring on him, go back to your filthy lifestyle and continue to whore around on him after he's remarried you and brought you back into a marriage covenant with him, I don't think you can do it again. I can find no evidence that he allows you to do that. And there's a lot of people out there teaching that. Well, if you go whoring, if you mess up, all you got to do is go, repent again, and he'll forgive you again. Well, I think there's a fine line which you cross that line and go back into your filthiness, your old lifestyle, before you were cleaned up, and do the things that you were doing, those same filthy lifestyle, the same habits, and so forth and so on. I think you've crossed over that red line. I don't think there's no coming back. I don't think he's going to marry you a third time. And I think there's plenty of evidence in Scripture that supports that. Okay. All right. So now we can see, at least I hope we can see, where there's, there is that possibility of reconciliation and remarrying your husband, Yahuwah, and re-entering getting yourself into the everlasting covenant. Okay. So since we aren't the ones that was given the certificate of divorce, why is it that we can't just go marry him for the first time? Some may be wondering that. So we didn't have nothing to do with that. We're a new generation. Why is it a renewed covenant? For us, it should just be the everlasting covenant, right? Well, because through one man, all men have sinned, and through one man, all men will be delivered. And speaking of the first Adam and the second Adam. Okay, so the reason is because although you weren't involved in that first marriage, that everlasting covenant, you were the descendants of those people, and who were scattered out into the Gentile, into the nations, and now you've woke up and realized that you're living among the Gentiles. Okay, and then so now you want to go back to Yahuwah. Well, guess what? You've done a whole lot of idolatry, a whole lot of breaking the commandments on your own. Okay, you were raised that way. It don't matter. You just woke up and realized that you were a sinner, or that you were being committing idolatry. It don't matter. You were doing it. So you have to go through that cleansing process in order to enter into the everlasting covenant. Okay, or the renewed covenant. Either one. Either way you want to say it, you still have to clean up. You're not like you're clean because you weren't part of the everlasting covenant back in Moses' day. You see what I'm saying? So you still have to clean up. You still have to, because you broke the Torah, and you have no excuse. Okay, if you have the Torah, you'll be judged by the Torah. If you don't have the Torah, you'll be judged by your conscience. If you don't have your conscience, you're going to be judged by the nature. He's put himself in nature where you should be able to recognize him in nature, so forth and so on. Okay, so there's no getting out of it. You have no excuse. You still have to confess, repent, be water immersed in the name of Yahusha, and then you have to receive the Ruach HaKodesh, be immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh. And then you have to endure. What does endure mean? Well, the endurance of the bride simply means being loyal. true blue, loyal, trustworthy to your husband by being obedient to the vows that you took. If you marry him, you should be taking these vows. Matter of fact, here's what I would highly suggest that you do. And that's that you take this covenant of love, this 10 commandments or 10 Debarim, and you start with number 1 and admit to him that you broke that. Go to number 2, admit to him that you broke that. Admit your crookedness. And then repent of doing all those. Beg his forgiveness. And then take a vow and accept the pledge through your words and your water immersion that you're going to obey these vows, these marriage vows, and you will not commit adultery on your husband by performing idolatry. Any type, witchcraft, worshiping the sun, the moon, and the stars, astrology, horoscopes, birthdays, Christmas, Easter. All these things are based on paganism. Matter of fact, once you wake up, you're going to see you're surrounded. You're going to see you're engulfed. You're going to even see that you're saturated in paganism. And you got to get clean up. No, regardless, okay? Regardless that you weren't part of the original everlasting covenant, you still, since birth, have been disobedient and basically committing adultery with other GODs. You have to admit that. You have to understand that. And you have to repent of it. And then take the pledge with your words and your immersions, your water immersion and the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh. You can immerse yourself and beg for forgiveness and clean yourself up with water. And as you come up through the water, you're immersed with the blood of the Lamb and the water and the blood. The same as a woman. When a baby's born, it's through water and blood. Same with you. When you go under, you come up, you're cleaned with the water, and the blood of Yahushua applies to you at that moment in the spiritual realm. And you clean yourself up, and you become reborn. You're a new creature now. So you're clean. So if you're a baby, if you're reborn, you're a virgin. You've gained your maiden status back. But the only one that can immerse you with the Ruach HaKodesh, or what Christianity calls the Holy Spirit, is Yahushua himself. Yahushua is the one that immerses in the Ruach. Nobody else can do that, just him. So you have to go to him for that. Ask for it. All right, so that's all of that is part of the Tanakh, and so we can get it. Let's get into the Nazarene writings here now a little bit. And let's say that, yeah, I went through that, Mike. I'll go through it again real quick. You may have missed it. Yeah, Deuteronomy 24:4. Everybody, go to Deuteronomy 24:4. So Deuteronomy 24:1-4 says, when a man takes a woman or an asha and shall marry her, then it shall be, if she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found a matter of uncoveredness in her, and he shall write her a certificate of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house. And if she left his house and went out and became another man's asha or wife, and the latter husband shall hate her and write her a certificate of divorce and put it in her hand and send her out of his house, or when the latter husband dies who took her to be an asha, his asha, then her former husband who sent her away is not allowed to take her back to be his asha after she has been defiled, for that would be an abomination before Yahuwah. And do not bring sin on the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you as inheritance. Okay, all right, so listen now. When Yahuwah okay, so when he gave them a certificate of divorce, he didn't go out whoring on them. Okay, he stayed true blue. She remained his Asha, his wife. Even though they went out whoring, he did not. Okay, but time passed on, and all these people that was in that everlasting covenant and the day of Moshe that was there and took those vows all died. And so that wife died off. Yahuwah remained true, trustworthy. Okay, so then the time came where he decided that he wanted his wife back and he was going to remarry her. So all the people that were born generations later are not the same wife that died. These are all different people, even though the husband's the same. Okay, but the big thing on that is that he's not going to marry any woman that's unclean. He doesn't want an unclean bride. So even though these people are different generations now than the ones that died back during Moses' time, they're still filthy because they're coming out of the pig pen, the world, which is they're living a filthy lifestyle. They have nasty habits. They're idolaters. They're worshiping statues, Christmas trees, all kinds of stuff, pagan holidays. They're filthy. He's not going to marry a filthy bride, whether it's a different woman or not. He ain't going to take her as his wife. But he wants his wife. So what's he doing? He says, okay, look, I'm going to come and I'm going to attract you with kindness. I'm going to date you. I'm going to clean you up. I'm going to get you to where you know me, and then I'm going to clean you up. And you're going to confess your crookedness, and you're going to repent, and I'm going to clean you up with water and with the blood of Yahushua. And once you're clean, O maiden of Israel, I'm going to remarry you because now you're a virgin again. You're no longer filthy. You're a clean bride. I'm going to marry you. Okay, so he's going to remarry his people, Yisrael. Okay, and it's been cleaned up with the water and the blood, and it has the Ruach HaKodesh in them. And now they take the vows, and he remarries them, and now they are back in the everlasting covenant. And at this point, we can call it the renewed covenant. Would be, okay to say, but it's still the same covenant. It's still the everlasting covenant. You see what I'm saying? So he's not violating the Torah at all. This would be similar to if a human and threw away his human wife and everything, and she went out and married somebody else, and then he wasn't allowed to marry her, right? So then she dies. So he doesn't do nothing. He doesn't marry anybody. Okay, but she did. Okay, so then her husband died, but he's not allowed to go marry her then, no matter what she does. But as soon as she dies, that husband can go remarry anybody he wants now. And so the husband did die when Yahushua was staked and shed his blood for the remission of the sins. That's the one reasons why he died. There's really a list of reasons he came and died. That's one of them. Okay, so I don't want to get too far off of there on you, but just so that you see that Yahuwah did not violate his Torah. And I hope you can see that, Mike. All right, let's get back to where we're at now and Yehukanan. So in John chapter 1, verse 16 to 18, it says, and out of his completeness we all did receive, and favor upon favor. For the Torah was given through Moses. The favor and the truth came through Yahushua HaMashiach, the Messiah. Okay. All right. So what this is talking about here is the old priesthood now, not the old covenant. I don't like that old covenant term. I'd rather say everlasting covenant. But the old priesthood is acceptable. And so the Torah or the instructions was given through Moshe for the animal blood sacrifices and was placed outside the ark. because it was temporary. So the animal blood that came through Moshe didn't do anything. All right, pretty much powerless. But the favor and the truth came through Yahushua Mashiach, which is his blood. Yahuwah shed his own blood, the blood of the Ruach HaKodesh, okay, for his people, for the remission of sins. So Yahusha's blood is powerful and is permanent and is a one-time sacrifice for the removal of sins or remission of sins. Okay, so this is the Torah through Moshe was the old priesthood, animal sacrifices, which was abolished when the true sacrifice of the world came, the Lamb of Yahuwah, which is the Messiah, and the favor and the truth came through Yahushua Mashiach, which was his powerful blood, his life-given blood, which has the power to return us to being maidens back to virgin status, so we can be remarried to him and enter back into the everlasting covenant, or the renewed covenant, if you will. Now, the proof of that is in Acts 13:39. So if you want to go to Acts 13:39, we can pick up on it. So Acts 13:39 says, let's go up to 38. Let it therefore be known to you, brothers, that through this one, I'm speaking of Mashiach, forgiveness of sins is proclaimed to you. And by him, speaking of Yahushua Mashiach, everyone who believes is declared right from all sins from which you were not able to be declared right by the Torah of Moshe. See that? From the Torah of Moshe, which is speaking here of animal blood sacrifices, the Torah of Moshe. See that? So if you compare John 1:17 to Acts 13:39, then you can pick up on what this is all about. Okay, it's about the Torah through Moshe, the old priesthood was the subscriptions of the animal blood, prescriptions of animal blood sacrificing, and the favor and the truth came through Yahushua Mashiach was his blood, the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah, which could remove sins and did. The blood of animals could not. Okay, so this is, we could see this as the establishing of the renewed covenant, because Yahushua, when he passed around that glass of wine, this is my blood that's for the new renewed covenant. Drink it. See that? Because without his blood, we couldn't be cleaned up enough, to be his bride. All right, so let's go take that over here to I say Romans. Let's go look at Romans. So Romans 6-8 talks a lot about what we were just talking about and speaks of the renewed covenant. You have to listen really close here in order to catch it, okay? What then shall we say? Shall we continue in sin to let favor increase? Let it not be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it? Or do you not know that as many of us as were immersed into Mashiach, Yahusha, were immersed into his death? So this is talking about walking and living in the true pattern of Yahusha. So we follow his pattern, we walk in his footsteps, and we do what he did, which leads us to everlasting life. He's the way, the truth, and the life. We need to walk in his footsteps to reach everlasting life, is where he is. He is everlasting life. We were there, so when he died, when you go under your water immersion, you go under the water, you're dead now with Mashiach. You've died. You've put the old man off. The old man who was condemned and tried, convicted, and condemned to death has died. He's paid the house. He's even with the house now. When you come back up out of that water, you're reborn. You're a new creature. You're reborn. Okay, you are now into the everlasting covenant. You've taken your pledge. Okay, and hopefully you've taken it verbally as well. We were therefore buried with him, see that, through immersion into death. So you died with Mashiach, the old man, the filthy man with the old habits, the man that was committing all that idolatry and adultery and paganism is now dead when you go into that water. We are therefore buried with him through immersion into death, that as Mashiach was raised from the dead by the esteem of the Father, so also we should walk in newness of life. So when you come up out of the water, you've been washed with the water and the blood, you are now a new creature, you have newness of life. It's like you're a brand new baby. You're clean as a whistle. Okay? For if we have come to be grown together in the likeness of his death, we shall also of the resurrection. So knowing this, that our old man was staked with him, so that the body of sin might be rendered powerless to serve sin no longer. So he who has died has been made right from sin. In the spiritual realm, you paid the price, man. You're now a new creature and walking into Pater Mashiach. When Yahushua looks down at you, all he's seen is Yahushua. At this point, the old man dead. You ain't seen that old man that's full of sin, saturated with sin anymore. You're a new being now. You got to get that in the spiritual realm. Don't let this delusion fool you and making you think the old man's still alive and you sin every day. That's a delusion. Don't let that overtake your mind. Look above to the things above. Walk in the spirit and truth. And if we died with Mashiach, we believe that we shall also live with him. Knowing that Mashiach, having been raised from the dead, dies no more, death no longer rules over him. For in that he died to sin once for all. But in that he lives to Yahuwah. So you also reckon yourselves to be dead indeed to sin, but alive to Yahuwah and Mashiach, Yahusha, our master. See that? So you got to be in the spirit and the truth. You realize the old man's dead. He's no longer saturating in sin, and he's powerless to sin, so you don't have to continue to sin. You're set apart from sin. You're set apart from that old man. You're a new creature, okay, that has been protected by the Ruach HaKodesh. So your inner being cannot sin, cannot be touched by sin. Okay, and your old body has become the temple of Yahuwah. It's not the old man. So don't give it credit for sinning, Ignore it, beat it down, do whatever you want, but control it, because you're no longer a servant to your flesh. You're no longer a servant to sin and death. You're alive with Mashiach and Yahuwah, and you're a new creature. Don't let anybody try to keep you down and tell you that you're still a sinner. It's not true. The flesh is powerless to sin, and you, the new creature, you are powerless to sin if you have the Ruach HaKodesh in you. There's plenty of scripture to back that up. So you also reckon yourselves to be dead indeed to sin, but alive to Yahuwah in Mashiach, our master. See that? Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body, to obey it in its desires. Neither present your members as instruments of unrighteousness to sin, but present yourselves to Yahuwah as being alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to Yahuwah. See that, man? For sin shall not rule over you, for you are not under the law, but under favor. Now, this is going back. And this is the penalty prescribed by the law, which is death. Okay. So you're no longer under sin and death, but you're under favor because you've been born again. The old man has died. You paid the price for them sins. Now you're under the favor of Yahuwah. Okay. And so you're with Yahusha in Yahuwah. If you can understand that. All right. So let's continue on here. What then shall we sin? What then? Shall we sin because we are not under Torah, but under favor? Let it not be. Let it not be. Under in this statement here means subjected to the penalties or accountability to its punishment, which is death. The crimes we committed are blotted out by the blood of Yahusha, who paid for us and purchased us with his own blood. Okay. So do you not know that to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience, you are servants of the one whom you obey, whether of sin to death or of obedience to righteousness or to life. Okay, so be a servant of obedience. Keep the commandments. Be loyal and trustworthy to your husband. Don't cheat on your husband. But thanks to Yahuwah that you were servants of sin, yet you obeyed from the heart that form of teaching to which you were entrusted. And having been set free from sin, you became servants of righteousness. I speak as a man because of the weakness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness and of lawlessness, resulting in lawlessness, so now present your bodies as servants of righteousness, resulting in set apartness. Set apart from the world, from the sin, from death, and from the flesh. For when you were servants of sin, you were free from righteousness. What fruit, therefore, were you having then, over which you are now ashamed? For the end thereof is death. But now, having been set free from sin and having become servants of Yahuwah, you have your fruit resulting in set apartness, in the end, everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death, but the favorable gift of Yahuwah is everlasting life in Mashiach Yahusha, our Master. Or do you not know, brothers, for I speak to those knowing the Torah, that the Torah rules over a man as long as he lives? For the married Asha has been bound by Torah to the living husband. But if her husband dies, she is released from the Torah concerning her husband. So then, while her husband lives, she shall be called an adulteress if she becomes another man's. So there you go. All those that were involved in the everlasting covenant became adulterers. They were adulteresses and became another man's because they worshipped other mighty ones through their idolatry and paganism and witchcraft, sorcery, drug sorcery, and so forth and so on. But if her husband dies, she is free from that part of the Torah, so that she is not an adulteress, having become another man's. All right. So, my brothers, you also were put to death to the Torah through the body of Mashiach, for you to become another's, the one who was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to Yahuwah. For when we were living in the mind of the flesh, the passions of sins through the Torah were working in our bodies to bear fruit to death. But now we have been released from the Torah. That is the prescribed penalty, or occurred the debt of death to be paid. Okay, so it's the prescribed penalty, death. It's what you've been released from, not obedience. You're not allowed to go out and whore around on your husband. Okay, you're not. That's what got Israel divorced in the first place. So now that he's recounseling and remarrying, cleaning you up and remarrying you, then you're freed from the penalty of your filthiness and your old lifestyle and habits, but you're still not allowed to go out and whoring and break your marriage vows, because then he's going to divorce you again. And I don't think there's any place in scriptures that says he's willing to remarry you 3 times. I can't find it. If it's in there, I don't see it at all. Having died to what we were held by, so that we should serve in newness of Ruach, or spirit, and not in oldness of letter. Okay, so we live in the mind of the Ruach HaKodesh. What then shall we say? Is the Torah sin? Let it not be. Moreover, I did not know sin except through the Torah. For also the covetousness I knew not, if the Torah had not said, you shall not covet. But sin, having taken the occasion through the command, did work in me all sorts of covetousness. For apart from Torah, sin is dead. And I was alive apart from the Torah once, but when the command came, the sin revived and I died. And the command which was to result in life, this I found to result in death. For sin, having taken the occasion through the command, deceived me, and through it killed me. So that the Torah truly is set apart, and the command set apart, and righteous, and good. Therefore, has that which is good become death to me? Let it not be. But the sin might be manifest, was working death in me through what is good, so that sin through the command might become an exceedingly great sinner. For we know that the Torah is spirit-like, or ruach-like, but I am fleshly, sold under sin. For what I work, I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. But if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah that it is good. And now it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. For I know that in me, that is my flesh, dwells no good. For to wish is present with me, but to work the good I do not find. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. But the evil I do wish to do, this I practice. And if not that which I do not wish, it is no longer I work it, but the sin dwelling in me. I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do good, that the evil is present with me. For I delight in the Torah of Yahuwah according to the inward man. But I see another law in my body, battling against the Torah of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my body. Wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? Thanks to Yahuwah, through Yahushua Mashiach, our master. So then, with the mind, I myself truly serve the Torah of Yahuwah, but with the flesh, the law of sin. So what's this all talking about? Okay, so when I remember I said when you die with Mashiach and your water immersion, you come up through the water and the blood, you're clean, you're a new person, you've been born again, and then you get immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh, you're a new creature with Mashiach in Yahuwah. Okay, and then Paul lays all this on us. So what's he talking about? He's speaking now in our reality. So in the spiritual realm, you walk in the spirit and truth, our body, old man's dead, so our body is the temple of Yahuwah, and he's indwelling his body and has us sealed for the day of redemption with the Ruach HaKodesh, which is living in us, right? His laws, his commandments, the marriage vows are written on our hearts and our inward parts and in our mind. Okay, so we're a new creature now, spiritual person, right? And so this body is sinless because it's powerless to sin because it's dead in our water immersion. Now it's the temple of Yahuwah and he indwells it. We're sealed with the Ruach HaKodesh for the day of redemption. And so sin cannot penetrate the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay. And so we cannot be filthy again. It can't get to our inner man, which is the inward man is the one that's being delivered and saved until he gives us our immortal bodies and gives us a new body. He has our inward man, our spirit, or Ruach, sealed for the day of redemption. It means when he comes back and purchases and gets us, he already bought us, gives us our mortal bodies, right? That's the spiritual realm. That's what's going on in Yahuwah's dimension, spiritual dimension. What's going on here in this carbon-copied world, this fleshly dimension that we live in, is what we still in these fleshly bodies. And our carbon copy eyes can plainly see that we're still walking in the dust in these fleshly bodies, right? And so in our reality then, we battle against the flesh, okay? And our inward man, once obeys Torah, is obedient, and we keep our marriage vows and we stay loyal, trustworthy to our husband, right? But the outer man, the fleshly man, still wants to serve sin and death. If you don't think so, you'll see when you die, that your body was still under a servant of sin and death. That's why it's going to die in our reality. So that's what he's saying. So then with the mind, I myself truly serve the Torah of Yahuwah, or obedient to the 10 love commands, their marriage vows, but the flesh, the law of sin. In our reality, in this fleshly carbon-copied world, man, it's what's going on in our reality, but not the spiritual dimension, not Yahuwah's reality. It's a totally different ball game. You understand? That's why he's describing this. He's letting you know that, walk in the spirit and the truth, but in our reality, you're still in this fleshly body full of sin, and it's going to die. But you're protected. You're sealed. Your inner man sealed by the Ruach HaKodesh, the day of redemption. So with your mind, your inner man, okay, can still is powerless to sin and can be obedient to Yahuwah and to your marriage vows, and you can serve the Torah of Yahuwah and be obedient to his Torah in your mind. See that? So it's like a separation. You're separate. You're set apart from your fleshly body now. How? Because the Ruach HaKodesh has you totally surrounded. You're totally engulfed with the Ruach, and you're protected. So your flesh and the sin in it cannot penetrate the Ruach HaKodesh, so you're set apart from your sin. So it's not you doing it, but it's the fleshly old man doing it in our reality, not in the spiritual realm. You got to understand the set apartness of Yahuwah. Okay, so let's continue on here. There is then now no condemnation to those who are in Mashiach Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. See, that's just what we we're just talking about. For the Torah of the Ruach of the life in Mashiach Yahusha has set me free from the law of sin and death. He's set apart from it. For the Torah being powerless, and that it was weak over the flesh, Yahuwah having his own son in the likeness of flesh, of sin, and concerning sin, condemns sin in the flesh. So he broke the power of death. So death has authority over sin, holds authority over sin, but Yahuwah broke it, broke the power of death, so that the righteousness of the Torah should completed in us who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. See, it's just what I was just saying, just confirming it. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the matters of the flesh, but those who live according to the Ruach, the matters of the Ruach. For the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Ruach is life and peace. See, that's so you have to walk in the spirit and the truth, the mind of the Ruach. Yeah, in words, you have to think as though you're in Yahuwah's spiritual dimension, not in this carbon copied world any longer. Okay? Because the mind of the flesh is hatred towards Yahuwah, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Yahuwah. Neither indeed is it able. So if you find yourself not being obedient and being a trustworthy and loyal bride to your husband, then chances are, actually, there's no doubt that you're still in the mind of the flesh. You don't have the Ruach HaKodesh. You're not cleaned up. You're not a maiden. You're not a married woman. You're still living a filthy lifestyle. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach. If you've went through the rebirth, your water immersion and your spiritual immersion. If indeed the Ruach of Yahuwah dwells in you. And if anyone does not have the Ruach of Mashiach, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, this one is not his. See that? Yeah, so you're not his. If you find yourself, you can't obey and stay true to the marriage vows, be trustworthy, you don't have the Ruach. Because you're powerless to sin. You're powerless to break that covenant if you have the Ruach HaKodesh living in you. And if Mashiach is in you, the body is truly dead on account of sin. But the Ruach is life on account of righteousness. See that? And if the Ruach of him who raised Yahusha from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Mashiach from the dead shall also give life to your mortal bodies through the Ruach dwelling in you. What's that mean? Well, your mortal body is going to return to dust. Okay, we'll just say you fall asleep before Yahusha comes back. Well, he's going to resurrect your body. Okay, your mortal body, your bones and stuff going to be resurrected, but it's going to be changed into immortality. A reason I think he uses your old body and resurrects it, I think, is so that you maintain your individuality. You look like you do now and have a personality that's recognizable to your identity, which would identifies you, your name. That's what I think. And then, brothers, we are not debtors to the flesh to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, we are going to die. But if by the Ruach you put to death the deeds of the body, you shall live. For as many as are led by the Ruach of Yahuwah, these are the sons of Yahuwah. See that? So if you have the Ruach HaKodesh in you and you walk in the spirit and truth, that's proof positive that you're a son of Yahuwah. You're the sons of Yahuwah. For you did not receive the Ruach of bondage again to fear, but you received the Ruach of adoption by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. The Ruach himself bears witness with our Ruach that we are children of Yahuwah. And if children, also heirs, truly heirs of Yahuwah, and co-heirs with Mashiach, if indeed we suffer with him, in order that we also be exalted together. So if you recall last week's study, we found out that we will, if we are walking in the true pattern of Yahusha, that we are going to suffer as he suffered. We walk as he walked, we'll suffer as he suffered. Why? So that others will be able to be delivered as well through our suffering and pain, because Yahusha is in us. The Ruach HaKodesh is the spirit of Yahusha living in you. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the esteem that is to be revealed in us. For the intense longing of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Yahuwah. For the creation was subjected to futility, not from choice, but because of him who subjected it, in anticipation, that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage to corruption into the esteemed freedom of the children of Yahuwah. For we know that all the creation groans together and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. And not only so, but even we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Ruach, we ourselves also groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. For in this hope we were delivered, but hope that is seen is not hope. For when anyone sees, does he expect it? And if we expect what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with endurance. And in the same way, the Ruach does help in our weaknesses, for we do not know what we should pray. But the Ruach himself pleads our case for us with groanings unutterable. And he who searches the hearts knows what the mind of the Ruach is, because he makes intercession for the set apart ones according to Yahuwah. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love Yahuwah, to those who are called according to his purpose, because those whom he knew beforehand, he also established beforehand, to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, for him to be the firstborn among many brothers. Yeah, so there it is, walking in the true pattern of Yahushua, walk as he walked. And whom he'd established beforehand, that means before the foundations of the earth was laid. He knows who is his. These he also called, and whom he called, these he also declared right. And whom he declared right, these he also esteemed. If Yahuwah is the one that's declaring right, who are we to declare somebody wrong? What then shall we say to this? If Yahuwah is for us, who is against us? Truly, he who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up on behalf of us all, how shall he not, along with him, freely give us all else? Who shall bring any charge against Yahuwah's chosen ones? It is Yahuwah who is declaring right. See that? Who is he who is condemning? It is Mashiach who died, and furthermore is also raised up, who is also at the right hand of Yahuwah, who also makes intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of the Mashiach? Shall pressure or distress or persecution or scarcity of food or nakedness or danger or sword? As it has been written, for your sake we are killed all yom long. We are reckoned as sheep of slaughter. But in all this we are more than overcomers through him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor messengers, nor principalities, nor powers, neither the present nor the future, nor height nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Yahuwah, which is in Mashiach Yahusha, our master. Okay, and let's just quickly here, look here now at chapter 9, 1 through 5. I speak the truth in Mashiach. I do not lie. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Ruach HaKodesh, that I have great sadness and continual grief in my heart. For I myself could have wished to be banished from Mashiach for the sake of my brothers, my relatives according to the flesh, who are Israelites, whose is the adoption and the esteem and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the worship and the promises, whose are the fathers and from whom is the Mashiach according to the flesh, who is over all. Yahuwah, blessed forever. Amen. So there you go. So the covenants and all this Torah, all adoption, all this belongs to who? The Israelites, the Israel, which is princesses of Yah, or rulers with Yah, if you will. And so it's his body, his wife, his election, Yisrael. Okay, so very interesting, right? So that kind of shows us a lot. I think we need to visit Hebrews 8 real quick. Yeah, we're getting down there closer to the end now. Okay, so let's go to Hebrews 8 through 10. This is really heavily teaching about the renewed covenant. It's extremely important to understand this. I think we're all on board here now. At least I hope we see the progress that's going on here and where we're at. So someone says, well, what covenant are we in now? We can safely answer the everlasting covenant. If we want to be more specific, we can say we're in the renewed everlasting covenant. Okay? Can't say new. It's not new. It can't be new because it's the everlasting covenant. It's not new. It's not old. It's plainly the everlasting means everlasting. So it's not old or new. But we can safely say we're in the renewed everlasting covenant. I think as we've all witnessed here this evening. So here we go, Hebrews 8. Now the summary of what we are saying is, okay, here's the summary. We have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the Shemayim, and who serves in the set apart place and of the true tent, which Yahuwah set up and not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters, so it was also necessary for this one to have something to offer. For if indeed he were on Retz, or the earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and a shadow of the heavenly. So it'll be a type or a shadow or a copy of of the reality. And there's a lot of that going on here in this carbon copy world, and a lot of it throughout scriptures of truth, if you can identify. Like I said, the one of them is a marriage between a man and a woman is the type or shadow of the marriage between Yahusha and his bride. Okay. Of the heavenly, and Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent, for he said, see that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the Yam when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Yahuwah. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Yisrael after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And that's the renewed covenant, the renewed everlasting covenant, if you will. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor and each one of his brothers, saying, Know Yahuwah, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, because I shall forgive their rebellion and their sins and their lawlessness. I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing, aged, is near disappearing. Okay. All right, so let's go into 9. Now the first indeed had regulations of worship in the earthly set-apart place, for a tent was prepared, the first part in which was the lampstand. The first part in which was the lampstand, yeah. And the table and the showbread, which is called the Kadesh place. And after the second veil, the part of the tent which is called most set apart, to which belonged the golden censer and the ark of the covenant overlaid on all sides with gold, in which were the golden pot that held the manna and the rod of Aaron that budded and the tablets of the covenant. And above it was the cherubim of esteem were overshadowing the place of atonement, about which we do not now speak in detail. And these having been prepared like this, the priest always went into the first part of the tent, accomplishing the services. But into the second part of the high priest, the high priest went alone once a year, not without blood, which is offered for himself and for sins of ignorance of the people, unintentional sins. The Ruach HaKodesh signifying this, that the way into the most set apart place was not yet made manifest, while the first tent has a standing, which was a parable for the present time, in which both gifts and slaughterings are offered, which are unable to perfect the one serving as to his conscience, only as to foods and drinks and different washings and fleshly regulations imposed until a time of setting things straight. But Mashiach, having become a high priest of the coming good things through the greater and more perfect tent not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, entered into the most set apart place once for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having attained everlasting redemption. For if the body of the bulls and goats and ashes of a heifer sprinkling the defiled sets apart for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of the Mashiach, whom through the everlasting Ruach offered himself unblemished to Yahuwah, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Yahuwah. Okay, so the blood of the Lamb washes away, cleans our conscience so that we no longer believe that we're servants of sin, that we're serving, sin and our servants of the sin and death. You can see it cleans all that up. So here, back up here in 8:13, by saying renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing to ages near disappearing would be the part of this, the animal sacrifices. That's a junction to the covenant, the laws and so forth and so on, not the covenant, everlasting covenant itself, but the laws and statutes and right rulings of Yahuwah. Okay, it's growing old, so it's disappearing. So in other words, the old priesthood, the part of the old priesthood that was attached to the Torah is fading away. There's people, believe it or not, still out there doing blood sacrifices, animal rituals and stuff, and they're even anticipating building a third temple in Jerusalem, and so they can resume doing those animal sacrifices. And which is really kind of an insult, and it's kind of an abomination to Yahuwah. So it's really not his temple, but the anti-Mashiach will enter that third temple, and he will sit on the throne of Yahuwah, and he will proclaim to be Yahuwah. So this third temple that's going to be built out there, I wouldn't go running over there and trying to worship Yahuwah and do animal sacrifices and be part of that if you see that erected, because it's really, what it really is it's going to be a temple of the anti-Mashiach. That's what it's really going to be. All right, so hopefully you all picking up what I'm laying down on that. So that's what I'm saying. I don't like to use old covenant. The old priesthood is acceptable. So we got to keep that differential, because if it's an everlasting covenant, it can't be old. It can't go old and dying and then disappearing if it's everlasting. See what I'm saying? So what's that talking about then? Like I just said, the animal blood sacrifices and the Torah and stuff, part of the old priesthood that was abolished when the Lamb of Yahuwah came and shed his perfect blood for the remission of sins. Okay? All right, so, but his own blood having attained everlasting redemption. See that? And because of this, he is the mediator of a renewed covenant, so that death having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. Because his blood, the blood of Yahuwah, the Lamb of Yahuwah, has the power to make you a maiden, clean you up, in order for you to your inheritance would be everlasting life, an everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is necessary for the death of the covenant one to be established. For a covenant over those dead is firm, since it is never valid while the covenant one is living. Therefore, not even the first was instituted without blood. For when, according to Torah, every command had been spoken by Moshe, there had to be blood shed. Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins. Okay, that's what this is talking about. For when, according to Torah, every command had been spoken by Moshe to all the people, he took the blood of the calves and goats with water and scarlet wool and hyssop and sprinkled both the book itself and all the people, saying, "This is the blood of the covenant which Yahuwah commanded you." And in the same way, he sprinkled with blood both the tent and all the vessels of the service. And according to the Torah, almost all is cleansed with blood. And without shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. See that? It was necessary then that the copies of the heavenly ones should be cleansed with these, but the heavenly ones themselves with better slaughter offerings than these. For Mashiach has not entered into a Kadesh place made by hand, figures of the true, or shadows, or type, or copies, but into the heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of Yahuwah on our behalf. And not that he should offer himself often, as the high priest enters into the set-apart place year by year with blood not his own. For if so, he would have had to suffer often since the foundations of the world. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the offering of himself. And it awaits men to die once, and after this the judgment. So also the Mashiach, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time apart from sin to those waiting for him to deliverance. So there you go. There had to be blood to inaugurate this renewed covenant, if you will, indicating the people had been set free from slavery to sin. The first thing, that everlasting covenant, or you want to call it the first covenant, the first time around, Moses sealed it this covenant with animal blood. The renewed covenant, or the second covenant, if you will, the renewed covenant is sealed with the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Lamb of Yahuwah. Yeah, it had to be a death for the covenant to be established. Why? Because you had to have blood. That's why. You had to have blood to sprinkle to make the covenant become, lawful document, if you will. Okay, so for the Torah having a shadow of the good things to come, and not the image itself of the things, was never able to make perfect those who drew near with the same slaughter offerings, which they offer continually year by year. Otherwise, would they not have ceased to be offered? Because those who served, once cleansed, would have had no more consciousness of sins, but in those offerings is a reminder of sins year by year. So the animal blood never did anything. That's why they had to do it year by year, because it didn't work. For it is impossible for blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. See that? Therefore, coming into the world, he says, slaughterings and meal offerings you did not desire, but a body you have prepared for me, and burning offerings and offerings for sins you did not delight. Then I said, see, I come in the megillah of the book, it has been written concerning me, to do your desire, O Yahuwah, saying above, slaughtering and meal offerings and burnt offerings and offerings for sin you did not desire, nor delighted in, which are offered according to the Torah. So Yahuwah ain't giving anybody everlasting life according to these slaughterings and meal offerings and burnt offerings that was written in the Torah, placed outside of the Ark of the Covenant, which means they were temporary. So what were they? They're just a trainer. It was a trainer to the Hebrew mind, getting them ready to be able to accept the blood offering of the Lamb of Yahuwah. That's what he was doing. He was training them. Then he said, see, I come to do your desire, O Yahuwah. He takes away the first to establish the second. Takes away the training, the school, okay, to establish the reality, the true offering, which is the blood of the Ruach HaKodesh. By that desire, we have been set apart through the offering of the body of Yahushua Mashiach once for all. And indeed, every priest stands day by day doing service and repeatedly offering the same slaughter offerings, which are never able to take away sins. But he, having offered one slaughter offering for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of Yahuwah, waiting from that time onward until his enemies are made a footstool for his feet. For by one offering he has perfected for all those who are being set apart. And the Ruach HaKodesh also witnessed to us, for after having said before, this is the covenant that I shall make with them after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I shall write them, and their sins and their lawlessness I shall remember no more. So there's the renewed covenant. This is the covenant I shall make with them after those days. See that? Now where there is forgiveness of these, there is no longer a slaughter offering for sin. So brothers, having boldness to enter into the set-apart place by the blood of Yahushua, by a new and living way which he instituted for us through the veil, that is, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of Yahuwah, let us draw near with a true heart and completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience and our bodies washed with clean water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the Yom coming near. Don't forget to assemble with Yahuwah's body, the body of Yahusha, the Nazarene. Okay, we must stay in obedience by assembling. Don't forsake assembling. We have to be able to forgive, release, bless, and love others. Although they may hurt our feelings, they may step on our toes, they may poke us in the eye. We may get our feelings hurt. Maybe we don't quite understand what we thought we understood, and vice versa. But we have to put all that behind us. We have to move forward in His light. Remember what He said. If you judge others, you'll be judged exactly the way you judge them. If you don't forgive others, then you won't be forgiven. Everything that you do is going to come around and be judged on you. So your actions, the way you judge, what you do, the way you handle the situations with brothers, especially with brothers and sisters in the body, you can be putting all that on yourself. Although you're saying it about them, it could come right back and be put on you. So you got to be careful with that, because it's one body. That's why. For if we sin purposely after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sins. See that? But some fearsome anticipation of judgment, and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the Son of Yahuwah underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was set apart as common, and insulted the Ruach of favor? For we know him who has said, vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahuwah. And again, Yahuwah shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall into the hands of the living Yahuwah. This passage seems to implement, or at least suggest, that there's no third marriage. If you blow it, you get remarried to him, and you're in the renewed covenant, and you blow it and go back to your old filthy lifestyle and habits and so forth and so on, you become dirty again, you start whoring around on your husband, cheating on your husband, I don't think he's going to give you a third shot. He ain't going to marry you a third time. He's just going to leave you divorced. That's what it sounds like. But remember the former days when, after you were enlightened, you endured a great struggle with sufferings. On the one hand, you were exposed to reproaches and pressures, and on the other hand, you became sharers with those who were so treated. For you sympathized with me in my chains, and you accepted with joy the seizure of your possessions, knowing that you have a better and lasting possession for yourselves in the Shemayim. Do not then lose your boldness, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance. That means you have to stay loyal and trustworthy to your husband. You can't go out cheating on your husband, folks. So that when you have done the desire of Yahuwah, you receive the promise. You stay trustworthy, you will receive the promise. For yet a little while, he who is coming shall come and shall not delay. But the righteous shall live by belief. But if anyone draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we are not those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of life. All right. Wow. Pretty powerful there. All right, let's look at Revelations 12:17. It says, and the dragon was enraged with the Asha. This would be the wife of Yahuwah, the ones that are under the covenant. And he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, her fruits, those guarding the commands of Yahuwah and possessing the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach. So, according to the commands of Yahuwah and possess the witness of Yeshua Mashiach means you are in the renewed everlasting covenant. You are married to Yahuwah. It's the dragons after you. Remember, we were talking about there's a war against the covenant and against the bride of Yahuwah. Yeah, look at Revelations 14:12. Here is the endurance of the set apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Yahuwah and the belief of Yahusha. Okay, so same thing here. These are those who are in the renewed covenant. Okay, so the endurance of the set apart ones is those who remain loyal and trustworthy to their husband by obeying their marriage vows or the 10 commandments, if you will. It says in Matthew 24:13 says that he who endures to the end will be delivered. That means he who stays loyal and trustworthy to his marriage vows to his husband and do not go out cheating on his husband or her husband or breaking your marriage vows to your husband, you will be delivered in the end. You must endure. You must stay true blue, trustworthy, loyal to your husband. No cheating on him this time around. Okay, he's not going to accept that. Make sure that you're, when you enter into that renewed covenant, that you know what you're doing. You're marrying Yahuwah forever. It's a lifetime commitment, and it's an eternal commitment. In this life and the life to come, that you remain married to him, honest, true blue, trustworthy, loyal to your husband. It's a big deal. Okay, you don't want to get caught cheating on your husband by putting up a Christmas tree in your house. You should be beyond that. Your journey should have taken you well beyond that type of disobedience and cheating. You should have matured to a higher level of love, to where you don't even think about anyone else but Yahuwah. Okay, so we see the type here in Ephesians of the marriage between a man and a woman is a type or foreshadow of the marriage to Yahuwah. The marriage between Yahuwah and his bride, Yahusha being the head of the bride, and the chosen or election being all the components that make up the entire body of the bride together with Yahusha as the head. Okay, so basically you're the body of Yahuwah is what you will be. So Ephesians 5, we see that this secret of the human marriage is great. It represents the marriage between Yahuwah and you and the bride, okay? And so, in other words, if it's a type or foreshadow, that means that our marriage, our human marriage between a man and woman, is practice for the marriage to Yahuwah when he comes to redeem his bride. Okay, then there will be a wedding feast, a wedding supper. So let's look at this foreshadow, and then we can better understand that it's a practice. We're practicing to be married to Yahuwah. All right, so if you go cheating on your spouse, okay, then what are you doing? You're failing in your practice. Okay, it's not a good thing to be doing. Okay, because Yahuwah is really your husband and wife deal is really you're representing Yahusha, the body in the body, man. So you don't want any adultery or wicked stuff going on within the body, do you, of Yahusha? See what I'm saying? So it's a serious thing here. It's practice, but it's a serious thing. It's a foreshadow of what's coming. So let's listen to it. So then do not be foolish, but understand what the desire of Yahuwah is. The desire is to have a wife, marry her, and have a perfect relationship for eternity. That's what it is. And do not be drunk with wine, in which is loose behavior, but be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. That's a command, to be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. Speaking to each other in psalms and songs of praise and Ruach-like songs, singing and striking the strings in your heart to the Master, giving thanks always for all to Yahuwah the Father, in the name of our Master Yahushua Mashiach, subjecting yourselves to each other in the fear of Yahuwah. Wives, subject yourselves to your own husbands as to the Master, because the husband is head of the Asha, as also the Mashiach is head of the assembly, and he is deliverer of the body. But as the assembly is subject to Mashiach, so also let the wives be to their own husbands in every respect. Husbands, love your wives, as Mashiach also did love the assembly and gave himself for it, in order to get it apart and cleansed it with the washing of water by the word, in order to present it to himself a splendid assembly, not having spot or wrinkle or any of this sort, but that it might be set apart and blameless. See that? Here's the cleansing process, giving you back your maiden status. In this way, husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his Asha loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but feeds and cherishes it, and also the Master does the assembly. Because we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his Asha, and the two shall become one flesh. The secret is great. This secret is great. But I speak concerning Mashiach and the assembly. See that? This is all about you marrying Yahuwah. So what's all this chapter is about has nothing to do with your fleshly marriage, human marriage, but it is a type and shadow of Mashiach and the assembly, his body, his bride, Yisrael. You see it? However, you too, everyone, speaking about human relations now, let each one love his own Asha as himself, and let the Asha see that she respects her husband. Powerful stuff, man. So you say, nevertheless, this is a huge secret, a great secret. Okay, he's talking about Yahuwah marrying you, basically the body of Mashiach, assembly. Okay, which is the bride. Okay, so but he's saying, but however, you too, everyone, in case you can't see the spiritual implication to this, at least. Love your Asha yourself, and Asha, respect your husband because of this practice. So by doing this, then you're doing what you should be doing to practice being married to Yahuwah, staying loyal and true to Yahuwah. See what I mean? So practice on. At least do your human references to your wife and to your husband. Keep true to each other. Then that way you'll get good practice in what you should be doing once Yahuwah marries you and you enter into the renewed covenant. See that? Okay, so let's take a look here at Matthew 24:13 real quick. It says, Matthew 24:13, but he who shall have endured to the end shall be delivered. Okay, so that's where I got that from. And that means basically staying loyal and trustworthy and true, honest to your husband. Okay, don't go out cheating on him. Once he marries, you become married to him and you enter into the renewed covenant, you better stay clean. Keep yourself worthy to be the bride of Yahuwah. Okay. All right, so let's look now here at 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 5:14 to the end there, to 21. For the love of Mashiach compels us, having judged this, that if one died for all, then all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised. So from now on, we recognize nobody according to the flesh. And if we have known Mashiach according to the flesh, yet now we no longer know him thus. Therefore, if anyone is in Mashiach, he is a renewed creature. The old things have passed away. See, all things have become renewed. Born from above, people. And all things are from Yahuwah, who has restored or recounseled, if you will, us to favor with himself through Yahushua Mashiach, and has given us the service of restoration to favor. That is, that Yahuwah was in Mashiach, restoring the world to favor to himself. So Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnate. Not reckoning their trespasses to them, and has committed to us the word of restoration to favor. Wow. Therefore, we are envoys on behalf of Mashiach, as though Yahuwah were pleading through us. We beg on behalf of Mashiach, be restored or recounseled to favor with Yahuwah. For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of Yahuwah. So we are the envoys of reconciliation, folks. We're the proof that people can recounsel, come back to Yahuwah, and he'll accept them back, cleanse them up, recounsel with them, remarry them, and they can enter into the renewed covenant or the renewed everlasting covenant, which leads to everlasting life. Okay. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up here with a treat, since we all should be able now to see that we have a husband, and your creator is your husband, in case you don't know that. If you are in the everlasting covenant, of course. But I want to give you a little treat here based on that. And it's in the Song of Songs. Okay, so we go to the Songs of Songs on chapter 3. What this is it's a sort of a parable, I guess, of courtship between Yahuwah and Yisrael. I like to look at it as a love letters. These are love letters. Remember, I told you he's going to court you. It's a courtship. So he wants to attract you with his kindness until you get to know him, and then he wants to go to a courtship with you, and he wants to clean you up. He wants to make you his bride, give you bride status. In other words, return your maiden status to you, to where you're clean, white as snow. no blemishes, no spots, no wrinkles. And so you're a maiden waiting on the return of your Redeemer, your kinsman Redeemer, your bridegroom will return to get you, to redeem you. And so he's taken us. He takes you through this courting process, and he courts you, and and then he cleans you all up, and then he marries you. Okay, and he's going to come back and redeem you, and then there's going to be a dinner, a supper, a wedding supper, just like we read back in Exodus, Deuteronomy. We read all about that. So it's the same thing. That was a foreshadow. It was a reality, but it was a foreshadow of the reality that is all about the marriage between Yahuwah and Yisrael. So it's a little treat here. I want to read you what I call love letter from Yahuwah to you. As he courts you. He's courting you here now. So open up your eyes. Command your eyes and ears to be open. Open up your heart and listen to the words of your husband, the one that is seeking you out. On my bed at night, this is chapter 3, Song of Songs. On my bed, Elea, I sought the beloved of my being. I sought him, but I did not find him. Come, let me arise and go about the city. In the streets and in the broad places, I seek the beloved of my being. I sought him, but I did not find him. The watchmen, who are the Nazarene, the watchmen who go about the city found me, to whom I said, have you seen the beloved of my being? Scarcely had I passed by them when I found the beloved of my being. I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him to the house of my mother and into the room of her who conceived me. I have put you under oath, daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or by the does of the field. Do not stir up nor awaken love until it pleases. Who is this coming out of the wilderness like columns of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and frankincense, from all the merchants' fragrant powders? See, it is Shaloma's couch. 60 mighty men are around it, of the mighty men of Yisrael, all of them holding swords, skilled in battle. Each one has his sword on his thigh because of fear in the night. Sovereign Shaloma made himself a litter of the wood of Lebanon. He made its post of silver, its support of gold, its seat of purple. Within it was decked with love by the daughters of Jerusalem. Go forth, O daughters of Zion, and see sovereign Shaloma with the crown with which his mother crowned him on the yom of his wedding and on the yom of his gladness of heart. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. All right, so that wraps up our study this evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for everybody in the chat room. Thanks for your comments. I hope everybody got as much out of this as I did. If you missed it, if you missed any of this, I urge you to go back and rewatch it to try to understand what's going on and where we're at and what covenant we are in. So we are in the renewed covenant is where we're at. Okay. It's not an old, it's not a new. Speaking of the marriage vows, the marriage covenant The husband's the same. Yisrael, his wife, is the same. Okay, all the components are different, but we all make up different components in the body, but we're one body. And we got to get that. There's other covenants that are everlasting as well, but this is the particular one that I wanted to try to focus on this evening. I thought we just all needed to try to get to understand it a little bit better, so we can see what's going on here, get the big picture. Okay. Tomorrow we have another study at 12 o'clock noontime, or would be Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 o'clock here in Texas. We go on what we call the Zoom at noon, but it's actually on YouTube. And so in StreamYard, it's a live broadcast presentation by the Netzarim. The Netzarim will assemble tomorrow, and we invite everyone to be there. Netzarim are here to help. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're not trying to cause division. We're not trying to make anybody get hurt feelings or act like, or feel like they don't want to be around us or anything. It's not our intentions at all. Like I say, we all have to mature here to a responsible level of love, and we have to overlook things, because there's no perfection here in this fallen world, people. Okay, and that's what Paul was speaking about there in Romans 6, 7, and 8 when we read it. He was trying to explain to us that yes, we're children of Yahuwah, and yes, we're walking in the spirit and truth, but in our reality, in this carbon copy world, we're still dealing with this fallen world in this fleshly body. But he gives us, shows us how to deal with it. Okay, and so it's a delusion. It's not where we belong. It's not who we are. But nevertheless, we're here and trapped in this delusion, and he teaches us how to deal with it by showing us the set apartness between the truth in the spiritual realm and the delusion, and the false realm of carbon copied world that we're walking in the dust here. So we got to rise above the dust. We need to arise above ourselves. Okay, it's Yahuwah's kingdom, eternal reign, everlasting life. Yahuwah is above us, man. It's above our little carbon copied world here. We need to rise above it and become larger than this life that we're living in. And when we do that, we need to learn to forgive others and not hold grudges against them, or say, I'll show him. I just won't ever come on his show again. That's it. That's not what Yahuwah wants you to do. Okay. It doesn't hurt me one way or the other. You're hurting yourself, and you're definitely disappointing your maker, your husband, Yahuwah. He doesn't want you to act like that. If he's willing to forgive big time sin, and I mean big time sin, like murderers, pedophiles, rapists, killers, all kinds of on and on and on, then we should be able to forgive, especially our brothers and sisters, some little mistake that they made, or some little quarrel that we may have gotten into over ideology. How small is that in comparison to what Yahuwah is doing and what Yahuwah wants? So please forgive. If I insulted anybody, or if I offended anybody or hurt anybody's feelings, I just want you to know I'm sorry and I love you. Okay, the ball is now in your court. So the scriptures teaches us to forgive, release, bless, and love others. And then Yahuwah will forgive us, release us, bless us and love us and marry us. Okay? So what we do to others, then he does for us. We can never outgive Yahuwah. We can never outlove Yahuwah. We can never outforgive Yahuwah. We can never release ourselves and others more than Yahuwah. We can never bless others more than Yahuwah. We just can't. We got to remember we're servants of righteousness. All right. And so hopefully a lot of you come on tomorrow, join the Netzarim as we continue to study in the book of Yehukanan or John. We're on the second chapter. We had a slow go last week. We just barely was able to finish chapter 1. It was so powerful and it was just full of truth and mind-blowing insight. And so, but we did get through it. If you missed it, go back and rewatch it and join us tomorrow. Please come. Yahuwah and the bride say, come. Please come. All righty. Thank everybody for coming. Peace, joy, and love to everyone. Open your heart, your arms, your eyes, and your ears to the one calling on you, the one sparking you. Yahuwah. He wants you as a wife. Will you hear him? Can you hear his call? Will you answer his call? Will you turn to him and love him? Confess your crookedness. Repent. Be water immersed. Take your pledge of words and water. Accept his Ruach HaKodesh into your life. Will you join the renewed covenant? Allow him into your heart, where you can inscribe your marriage vows on your heart and your inward parts and put them in your mind so you can be a true, blue, honest, trustworthy, loyal bride. Will you accept him as your husband? Will you say yes to Yahuwah? I hope so. Thanks for coming, y'all. And remember to stay in love with Yahusha. So long, Netzarim, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, everyone. See you next week.